And I think there's loud noise behind me from a coffee maker. And I'm in Chicago. Doug Pagitt here, Robb Ryerse, soon to be in Chicago. Hoping the sound is even tolerable for people because don't have headphones. Don't know about, but Rob, what we do have is some political news for the day.
Oh, yes. I don't know, Doug, is there anything for us to talk about today?
19 people inside of the how do they refer to it? The enterprise, inside
Yeah.
the enterprise of criminality that went on in and around counting the votes and the electoral representatives at the Electoral College from Georgia. Donald
Yeah.
Trump leading an enterprise. I was thinking, Rob, this might be the thing that Donald Trump has been most effective at doing.
Hmm.
Lost money as a businessman running a casino.
Mhm.
His steak business went under. His college was seen as a fraud and was prosecuted by the government for being a fraud. His
Mhm.
businesses have him in such debt that he owes money to Russian oligarchs. But what
Yeah.
does he do? He puts together a criminal conspiracy like no one I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's true. And, if it feels like he probably even holds the world record for presidential indictments at this point, doesn't he?
Yes, he might hold the record for indictments of people in many prisons.
Yeah.
He,
Yeah. All right, so let's talk about this. What's super interesting about the George, in case people haven't heard, late last night, the fourth indictment of Donald Trump came out. This one from the state of Georgia. As Doug has pointed out throughout this podcast, Donald Trump has been indicted for crimes that he allegedly committed before he was president, during his presidency, and after his presidency. He's like the alpha and omega of criminal activity. He also has been indicted at the local level in New York, at the state level now in Georgia, and at the federal level by special counsel Jack Smith
I mean,
in both Florida and DC. I mean, so he just has all the criminal bases covered.
yeah, he's just
So
he really gets around. The man's
yeah,
crimes. He didn't do much between the election and the end of the presidency. A lot of us remember him not
yeah,
doing much. Didn't
yeah.
hear from him, didn't see him. He wouldn't do press conferences, he wouldn't govern, he wouldn't meet with his cabinet. He was just sulking away. But what he was doing was conspiring against the United States and conspiring against the good people of Georgia and elsewhere.
Yeah. So this indictment it's a racketeering charge. It's a RICO charge that's often used against you know organized crime and the mob. Um, he is indicted for his attempts to thwart um, the acceptance, the certification of the election in Georgia, uh, interfering with or influencing a public official to violate their oath of office. Um, he's indicted for lying and participating in all of these untruths. And what's real interesting is, along with him, indicted includes Rudy Giuliani, Sidney Powell Lowell. Or is she just Sidney Powell now? Is she no longer a Lowell? I'm not sure.
Oh,
Um,
I didn't know that. Did she
I'm
have
not sure. I don't
some
know.
family
I don't
changes?
know. I don't know. John Eastman, and so really significant folks. If you remember back to watching the really the best show on television last year, the January 6th hearings, all of these were folks that played a part of that. Uh, and what's super interesting to me is there's a little sentence in the indictment. I haven't had a chance to read it yet. It came out late last night. I will read it later today. This one is a 98-page indictment, which I think is the longest of all the indictments. It's not the most charges, but it's the longest in terms of narrative and verboseness. There's a line in the indictment in which John Eastman admits that asking Mike Pence to delay the certification of the votes on January 6th, the certification of the electoral count on January 6th, to delay that for 10 days. John Eastman apparently said in writing, I don't know if it was an email or what, that would be a violation of the Electoral Count Act. A small one, a minor violation, but a minor violation nonetheless. All of this indicates, what that tells us is this was not just normal political conversation. This is not normal political speech. This is not the person who gets up on election night and says, there's still votes to be counted. We believe we won. Let's wait for all the votes to come in. Like we hear happen all the time. Or this is not like Hillary Clinton saying, I think I probably won that election and some Russia interfered to keep it from happening. This is not, Al Gore saying, the Supreme Court was wrong in stopping the recount in Florida in 2000. All of political speech is absolutely acceptable. And you can complain, you can wish for a different outcome, you can say that another outcome should have happened. What you cannot do is attempt to interfere in the actual counting and certification and acceptance of the vote. You cannot violate the Constitution, the oath of office that office holders take, and the process that we go through in making sure that every vote counts. And the thing that is different between what Donald Trump and his criminal enterprise did versus all of the other people that have complained about election results in the past is they took definite, specific actions to thwart the outcome of the election. And that is what they're being charged with. They're not being charged with saying, oh, we think we won.
Yes.
Because they're allowed to say, oh, we think we won.
Right. They're even allowed to say we won. They're even allowed to say the other people cheated. They're even allowed to say it was rigged. They're allowed to say all.
Yes. What you cannot do is
they shouldn't say that, Scott.
What you cannot do is call election officials in the state of Georgia and say, hey, listen, we need you to get us 11,780 votes. What you cannot do is gain illicit access to the Dominion voting machines in Coffee County, Georgia, in an attempt to manufacture some conspiracy that the voting machines were hacked. What you cannot do is try to convince the Vice President of the United States to violate his oath of office and the law and the Electoral Counting Act to delay the certification of the election. And what you cannot do, which is parenthetically not part of the Georgia charges, is incite a mob to storm the Capitol. You complain all day, claim you won all day.
And I would love to add to what you can't do. You can't put forth an alternative set of government representatives called electors to represent the state of Georgia, sign documents saying those people are the official representatives of the state of Georgia to the Electoral College, and then try to put those people into a position where their actions will replace the actions of those who have been duly assigned. And they did those things. This is the thing. This is the piece of it that's interesting to me. They actually worked for 2.5 months on options, like not plans, doing things to try to replace electors in Georgia, in Michigan, in Wisconsin, and in Arizona. And in Georgia, the prosecutor has gone through and found the records of these actions and these activities. So when people say it, and my co-host on the Monday edition of Red Hat, Blue Hat, Gacy, was texting me this morning about how this is just all rigged and how all he's doing is expressing his opinion, all the things you were just saying. And when you hear that from Trump's lawyers, when you hear it from your family and friends, when you hear this kind of argument, just remind them it's not about what they said, it's not about what they thought. As Rob put it, it's about what they did. Yes. And they did these things. And here's the thing about Eastman's comment. Okay, technically it would be a minor violation of the Electoral Count Act. That is not like saying, hey, I ran downstairs, which I just did a few minutes ago because I'm here in Chicago by the way, Rob, at the Parliament of the World Religions event.
I know.
A parliament.
Parliament. Yes. I was telling Whimsy this morning that I was headed to Chicago, and she's like, "Why are you going to Chicago?" And I said, "I'm going to the Parliament of World Religions."
Pippy, Whimsy, I'm off to the Parliament to see the World Religions.
She just looked at me like, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah, I literally had to look up the meaning of the word Parliament because I'm like, I think that's like a government term that relates to monarchies. As it turns out, it is. But anyway, so I'm here in Chicago. What's a minor violation was the parking charges started at 8:00 in the morning. I had to run downstairs to get my license plate number, so on my app I could pay the parking costs. And I was 5 minutes after 8. That's a minor violation. A minor violation is when you say to the building inspector who comes to make sure you did your bathroom right, hey, I had to run this piping like this because I've got this stud in this place. It's like, okay, that's not technically what we do. Just a minor violation. I'm going to let it slide. Yes. Those things happen in government all the time. That's totally reasonable.
Attempting to overturn a presidential election is not a minor violation.
Yes. The Electoral Count Act is not considered a minor violation. I mean, so for him to type it, however John Eastman typed the information that he sent off to the others in the criminal enterprise, is it going to be called Trump criminal enterprise? Is that going to be is there going to be a meeting outside of a building somewhere that sort of looks like a lawn care business where Rudy Giuliani is going to step up and say, as a member of the criminal enterprise? I mean, just the fact that in Georgia they get to call this a criminal enterprise is just too good to believe. It's a criminal enterprise.
I want to make some predictions. One not very serious, and then a couple of serious. One, and by the way, I don't know if you know this, Doug. I got a Four Seasons landscaping T-shirt for Christmas this last year, which is just amazing because I have fantastic family members. It says "Lawn and Order" on it, which is just great. So. Yeah, I know you love a good pun. The Four
love
Seasons
a good dad joke and a good pun. You know why I like puns? Because they're funny. That's why.
Yes. So here's the not serious. Here's the not serious prediction. Twitter, Facebook, everywhere, Instagram, everywhere is going to be inundated by the end of the day with RICO Suave memes related to Donald Trump.
RICO Suave?
Yeah, you don't remember that song from the I don't know, early 90s? RICO Suave? You don't remember that? You don't remember that guy? What you got people bringing you house plants at the Airbnb, Doug?
No, I don't have somebody bringing me a house plant, but just a moment ago on the chat, if people are following on the chat, a person made a comment, and then that person literally showed up right here. Look at this.
I brought coffee.
Brandon.
Excellent.
Brandon from Chicago, and I'm in Chicago, so if you didn't know.
Yes. Yeah. So I think we're going to be inundated with RICO Suave memes. Doug, if you're not familiar with RICO Suave that song,
can you brief me quickly on the RICO Suave?
It was a terrible song, I would guess, in 1991. that was just maybe 92, just absolutely horrible pop song that was super popular. And, it was some guy in a, with washboard
Okay.
abs in the
Oh,
music video, or
oh.
Rico Suave.
And why are we going to be inundated with those now, though? I think it's Rico.
Rico.
Oh my God.
Rico.
Somehow I missed it. Somehow I missed the
Rico.
Rico.
Yeah. Okay, so that's my okay. I think this indictment is very, very important. I'm now thinking this might be the most important of the four indictments for a couple of reasons.
Really?
I have two predictions here. Number one, Fannie Willis has said that she will give Trump and the other co-defendants, and by the way, parenthetically, totally fine with the phrase co-defendants as opposed to co-conspirators, because co-defendants doesn't already have an adjoining prefix in it. But so she's given Trump and the co-defendants until August 25th to surrender or be arrested.
Yeah, that's a long time. That's like a week from Friday.
Right. In each of the
no hurry with Fannie Willis. She is taking her time on these indictments. She's taking her time on when they show up.
In each of the other indictments, and it's crazy that we have a pattern here that we can talk about. Donald Trump's Donald Trump's team negotiated when his surrender would be in New York, in Florida, in Washington, D.C. All of that was carefully scripted. It was timed. It happened a day or two after the indictment came down. There was not a big delay. And it was all really done in private and in secrecy. I believe that Donald Trump is going to pick this indictment as the hill to die on, so to speak. I think this is the one where he's going to dig in his heels. I do not believe Donald Trump is going to surrender on August 25th or before.
Really?
I believe he is going to try to force the hand of Georgia officials to come and get him. And I think that they a warrant for his arrest will be issued. I believe he will avoid the state of Georgia so as not to be arrested. I think there's going to be some kind of I think he wants that confrontation. What has happened in the past is that the indictments themselves were shocking and enough of a firebrand to elicit campaign donations in millions and millions. With each subsequent indictment, there's a certain amount of indictment fatigue that is set in. I mean, not for me, but for Trump donors. And his ability to fundraise off of these indictments has dramatically decreased. I think that he needs some kind of big inciting incident to inspire his.
I see what you're saying.
And I think he needs the spectacle. I think he this martyr complex. I think he digs his heels in, and he will refuse to surrender. I think they're going to force him to be arrested. I think probably federal law enforcement is going to have to get involved. And I think we are going to see a perp walk with Donald Trump. We already know that Georgia has said that they're going to do, they've said, this has been widely speculated, that two things. One, that they're going to do the mugshot. We haven't seen a mugshot. There hasn't been a mugshot. Georgia said they're going to do the mugshot. Georgia also allows cameras in the courtroom. This is going to be the indictment and the trial that is most remembered, because we're going to get all of the footage of it. I think Donald Trump knows that, and he's got to position himself at the beginning as a martyr who's being persecuted. And that happens when, you have the right to remain silent. Everything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. Arrest it. I think the perp walk is exactly what he wants, and it's going to happen this time. That's number one.
Okay. All right. Solid prediction on
Tell
the
me I'm
record.
wrong.
Detail.
Tell me I'm wrong.
I feel like there's a script somewhere you've been working on that involves notes to directors and actors on how this is all going to go down. You got this. You got this laid out. I think here's how it's going to go. I think they're going to let people plead via digital communication and Zoom. They're not going to make them all go there and show up. And over time, before the 25th, they're all going to set up their little appointment because 19 people are being charged with this. So 19 people have to be figured out and processed and make all this happen by the 25th, which in one way is a long time, a week from Friday. But if you have 19 people who need to coordinate schedules and lawyers have to show up, and just think about what's happening already in Florida with Trump's in his Florida-based criminal conspiracy called the Enterprise, one of those people still hasn't pled because he doesn't have a lawyer registered in the state of Florida. So that's been delayed and delayed and delayed. So I think they're going to figure out a way to expedite this because the same judge has to deal with 19 criminal defendants. So, and then I think what's going to happen is they're going to delay this trial because of all of these defendants who may or may not have different lawyers are going to keep putting motions in front of the judge, and this thing isn't going to go to trial until 2025.
Yeah,
that's my guess. So
I have
rather than it being the next 6 months, we're going to have a TV trial, which I was hoping for last night after listening to Fonnie Willis last night saying she's going to charge them all at the same time. One big trial.
Yeah.
The length of that, the objections that are going to be, I mean, it's just going to be endless.
Yeah.
Endless amount of stalling and delays and so on.
Yeah, but
that's my guess is that this is we're going to hear about it. Then it's going to turn into court scheduling questions for the next 24 months.
Yeah, but it's just suggesting in the chat that the thing that will most delay the trial is Atlanta traffic. Which is hilarious. Okay, so well,
and then Alex says true to something, so I'm going to steal Alex's true statement and plop it after my comments. I don't know what she was referring to. True. So I think it's going to be really disappointing. Frankly, is my worry.
Well, we have two very different senses of how this is going to play out.
Yeah.
If
I like your version much better. That would be much more fitting, but
if your version of events takes place, my second prediction will not come true. If my version of events takes place, especially the speedy trial, then this is a possibility. Here it is. This indictment and subsequent criminal trial will be the one that keeps Donald Trump from being reelected as president of the United States. And here's why. Many of us for a long time have thought, okay, if he gets indicted, that'll be the end of him. If he gets convicted, that'll be the end of him. Like and it's just simply not the case. If he is indicted in Florida, if he's convicted in Florida, or if he's convicted in DC, those are federal charges. There is no federal law that says a felon cannot serve in office. There's no federal law that says that. So if he's convicted, of January 6th, the January 6th indictment, he's got an argument that he can still serve as president and even serve as president from jail.
Right.
Talk about, they talk about, the Texas White House of, that George W. Bush's ranch. I mean, you just imagine like the like alternative White House of like
In
whatever jail cell Donald Trump is
Cell Block
in.
C. When I
Yes.
was a kid, there was a show on from Australia called Prisoner Cell Block C, women in
Yeah.
prison. It'd be the Trump
Yeah.
annex in Cell Block C.
Yes.
Well, he
Yeah.
would pardon it. If he's elected president, he doesn't have a problem. He's not going to still be in jail while he's
Yes. Yeah. He's
even.
going to pardon himself. But there's that being convicted does not bar him from being reelected as president of the United States. However,
Yeah.
if he is convicted in the state of Georgia by the state of Georgia, Georgia law, as is the law in many states, including Arkansas, where I am, the state law, the state constitution indicates that a felon may not serve in office from that state. What's going to happen is Donald Trump, who will be the Republican nominee, his name will be taken off the ballot in Georgia, and other states with similar laws will follow suit and say he's a convicted felon, he cannot be elected. We in our state.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting whether those laws mean you can't be elected by the people of this state or you can't serve in this state, because as the president, he doesn't serve.
Right. But
he's not an elected official of Georgia. He's an elected official of the federal. That'll be
right.
And those Republican states, they will change that law before.
Yes. But
I'm sure someone's drafted up that
yes,
new
but
legislation.
Donald Trump cannot get to 270 electoral votes without Georgia, without Michigan, without Pennsylvania, all of which are places where.
Well, here's
Wisconsin,
the question I think you're raising, Rob.
So I think Donald Trump may be convicted in Georgia, may be the Republican nominee for president, and not be able to win no matter what, because his name won't be on the ballot in Georgia, Michigan, and a variety of other places.
Yeah, and that would all be predicated on the trial happens and he's convicted before November or late October.
That's why like Georgia is a major swing state.
Yeah,
really significant purple state. And so what this trial, I think, is the most important one, and is going to be the one that's going to determine whether or not Donald Trump has a chance to be reelected.
Well, I think you're right, and I think these charges actually will perform that same function. Just being reminded, Donald Trump, as the sitting president of the United States, with all the power that comes with that, did not win the popular vote in the state of Georgia 3 years ago.
Right.
The idea that he is now going to be more electable after the Republican governor, the Republican Secretary of State, and the other Republican officials that have turned on him, it turned him in for these crimes. He's going to be more electable in Georgia than he was in 2020 is just fantasy beyond belief. Like, the Georgia apparatus, at least as it impacts Republicans, there's going to be some percentage of Republicans that will say, I don't believe Jack Smith. I don't know that I believe, those people up in Manhattan, but this is in our state. And they're not going to be willing to say that the Republican officials in their state are as corrupt as they think Joe Biden is or anything else. They can't put this on Joe Biden's corrupt Justice Department, all that.
Because they have voted for Brian Kemp and
not for Donald Trump.
Right.
At the same time, they didn't vote for Trump. They split the ticket, voted not for Trump or for Biden, and then voted for Kemp. So the idea that he needs to be removed from the ballot could very well happen. You very well could be right. But it may not even matter if he's on there, because there's just not going to be enough people. In recent elections in Georgia, it has not gone Donald Trump's way. And the idea that some people who didn't vote for him in the past or voted for Ossoff or didn't vote for Herschel Walker are now going to be like, well, I really think Johnny's been treated.
Wow.
You forgot
That
about
was
Herschel Walker, didn't you?
wow. Wow.
Forgot about that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and look, here's the thing that Alex is bringing up in the chat, which I think is a good question, and that is that Republicans at the federal level were saying we're not going to impeach Trump because he's out of office now for what he did January 6th, interfering with the elections all over the place. But criminal prosecution can handle that. That was Mitch McConnell. And now that the criminal prosecution is handling that, they're now saying, hey, they shouldn't be making this political, right? I mean, it's just really hard to take them seriously. And there's just enough people who care about politics who are going to step away from Trump. And most people don't care. And they're just like, oh, look, he lost last time. He cheated. He lied. He's being charged. Like your average person doesn't listen to our podcast or watch the news that we do. And once you get headlines in Georgia that Trump is indicted in a criminal enterprise, 3%, 4% of Republican voters are going to be like, I'm just out on that guy. That's enough. Like he can't win. And if that happens in Arizona and in Wisconsin and Michigan, that's why, people that are paying attention to this. And that's why Trump is so worried, because he now has to bring in new voters to replace those who are just like, for us in Georgia, this is a tipping point. It's not federal charges. So I think you're right on this point that the state charges are more powerful to a lot of people's imagination than the federal charges, because it doesn't feel like the federal government doing bad things, right? It feels like the state government doing state government things.
In the American imagination, we don't have a category for insurrectionist. Before January 6th, that was not a word that any of us used. I mean, we don't have a category for that person who incites a riot to that's not like, we don't have a word for that. We don't have a mental image of that. What we do have is my point is that I think people have a hard time envisioning that. It takes plowing some new ground, which is a difficult thing, like mentally, to create that category in your mind and have okay, I understand what Donald Trump did, because we don't have that marker. What we do have is a mental category of mob boss. That's a part of the American imagination. The leader of a criminal enterprise. Oh yeah, the Godfather. Yeah. And we might romanticize that and make movies about that, but we have a category that fits. Oh, someone who breaks the law to for their own personal gain. Oftentimes they get brought down not by what they actually did, but by some minor thing, because the boss insulates themselves using underlings to do their bidding, we've got a category for that.
Yeah.
And so
the head of a criminal enterprise, we know how to talk about that.
And when the mental shortcut that people will make is they hear RICO charge, racketeering, this is what mob criminal enterprise, like this is what the mob gets charged with. Oh, Donald Trump was the leader of a mob ring.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I get that. Rudy Giuliani is Fredo. Okay. I get it. Like that, and that is actually, there will be memes, of Trump supporters, with Scarface and, all of that stuff, in The Godfather, all of that.
For sure. This is Trump's best bet, is to be the outlaw. We've been saying all along that there's a difference between criminals and outlaws. Criminals know what the laws are and break them. Outlaws don't believe there are any laws for them. That's they live as if the laws don't apply. Donald Trump has always been an outlaw.
Yes.
And if they can make him the outlaw candidate, not the law and order candidate, that's going to raise some money, and it's going to get 30% of the American
Yeah.
population feeling like their guy is sticking up for them against the big oppressive system.
But
But
the way it,
it's not enough to win an election.
right.
And
The
this is going
way,
to be the real question. We'll bring this up now that we're pushing into the primary season for Republicans. Can someone like DeSantis or Scott or Haley, can any of these people turn the ship enough to say, hey, let's get off, climb off the Trump boat and get onto my boat, and let's not bring Donald Trump as the nominee? Can they make enough headway in enough places
yeah.
to make that happen?
Yeah. And it there will be different tactics that will be used, or it will be interesting. Asa Hutchinson has already come out, strong and, saying that Donald Trump is unfit to be president and to be reelected as president of the United States. Chris Christie, no doubt, will use much sharper language and will hit hard against Donald Trump. Then there will be others who will try to, either cozy up or try to, be coy about it. And so I think they'll take different tacks. What will be interesting to see is, what will be most attractive to Republican voters. And,
Yeah.
will it be okay, I don't think they're going to take okay, we want the guy who's going strong at Trump. I think they're going to want can we get a kinder, gentler Trump? Like that, that's what I think what they're going to want. And so who becomes that person is going to be interesting. But I think the way that this I think the outlaw image helps Trump with his already devoted followers,
For sure.
but I think it dramatically hurts him with those people who don't, live and breathe this stuff like we do.
The small percentage of people that don't want the president of the United States to be an outlaw. Yeah.
Because, but I think this Georgia one hurts the most because it casts him in the image of, I mean, New York he's a rich guy trying not to pay taxes. Okay, that's gross, but we all get that. We all want to pay as little in taxes as we possibly can. Florida, wait, he's got boxes in his bathroom. We've got no category for this. We've got we can't conceive it. None of us have done this. The people who have committed, who have done what Donald Trump did in Florida are Barack Obama, Joe Biden, Mike Pence. Who has classified documents? This is bizarre. We can't conceive of it. DC, we can't conceive of it. We've got no category for it.
Yeah.
Georgia, mob boss, we get that. And this is the one that hurts him the most.
Yeah, I think you're right. Look, and David Johnson from the Facebook chat has a little comments, and this comes up a lot with Trump and with Trump supporters saying, "Have you guys started talking about Biden's corruption yet?" And then there's another comment saying that Joe Biden is the real outlaw. Look, as soon as Joe Biden has a federal or state charge brought against him, we will talk about it for sure. In fact, we even talk about it when Representative Comer and jacketless Joe Jordan bring up the accusations. And then there's nothing there. So, yeah, David, for sure.
Yeah.
We don't want anyone who's an outlaw to receive the support of any common good voter. For sure.
Yep. And
there's a huge difference between federal, state charges brought by grand juries inside of a judicial system and what people on Fox News or what people in a congressional hearing are saying that witnesses have said, and then you read the witness transcripts, and that's not what they said. So as soon as that happens, absolutely. So if you don't want Joe Biden to be president, David, because he's an outlaw, then you can't possibly want Donald Trump to be president because he's an outlaw. So if you can't vote for either outlaw, fair enough. This has been a vote common good pitch all along. You don't have to vote for Joe Biden, but you sure shouldn't be voting for Donald Trump. And you can make that choice. if you're going to say, oh, I'm just going to pick my outlaw, okay. Now, I don't grant
Just
that
be
Joe
honest.
Biden is an outlaw at all.
Yeah.
But if he is, turns out, then I won't be voting for him either. So this is the difference between media accusations and when Donald Trump was president and his Justice Department looked into the things you're calling as criminal behavior from Joe Biden, they couldn't find anything there. So we didn't get charges then. There aren't charges now.
Yep.
So we'll just wait on that one.
Yep.
But if you can't wait, David, because you're sure, I get it, then I don't know, maybe you're going to pick Bernie, or maybe you're going to pick
Elizabeth Warren.
Maybe you pick somebody else to vote for. Maybe you pick
RFK.
RFK, Robert. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, you've got some options.
Marianne Williamson.
But don't tell me
Marianne's running again.
But don't Gavin Newsom. But don't tell us. Oh, I'm now just picking between outlaws, right?
Yeah.
So, and if you're going to put Trump in that and Biden in the same category, fair enough. Yeah. So, yeah. And we talk about this stuff a lot. David, always glad to have you around. Now, for the rest of us who are like, oh, there's a difference between federal grand juries and state grand juries, because here's the thing about the system is corrupt, and then I'm going to finish on this little soliloquy. We now would have to have criminal corruption in the justice system at the federal level, at the New York state level, and now at the Georgia level. You would have to have grand juries and judges who are willing to break the law and trump up charges against Donald Trump and 18 other people in Georgia in order to get these indictments. A prosecutor or a district attorney can't just make up charges. They have to have evidence that has to be brought before a grand jury. That has to be signed off on by a judge. All of those people have to be corrupt. All of them. So it's possible that there are hundreds and hundreds of corrupt people all across the system who are willing to break the law and break their own moral conscience just in order to have fake charges brought against Trump that then later a jury, who also will be corrupt, would also corruptly prosecute him. That's one option. Or the other is Donald Trump has been leading a criminal enterprise, has been caught, and the justice system is doing what it does. Yeah. I think there's two really clear options here.
Yeah.
But the idea that somehow all of these people across multiple states in the federal government are willing to lie and cheat only to be thwarted by Donald Trump's brilliant legal minds that say, but it's free speech. And then they say, oh, foiled again by free speech. Boy, we did all of this corruption and we didn't know that free speech was the get out of jail free card for Donald Trump. It's so bizarre, right? Yeah. It's like, oh, you didn't know that a judge said one time that what a president says about the items in his sock drawer. This is literally an argument about Bill Clinton. But when he talks about what's in his sock drawer, he can say anything. Like, it is just madness to believe that the entire system is corrupt and inept. But Donald Trump is rising above it all.
Doug, that is, yes,
silly time.
But what you're describing is the complete Trump narrative.
Yeah, no.
There's a deep state.
Yes.
And Trump is there to fix it.
Fix it.
I know. What you're saying that is like, there's no way that a grand jury in New York, an independent grand jury in New York, there's no way an independent grand jury in Florida, there's no way an independent grand jury in DC, there's no way an independent grand jury in Georgia all would be singing from the same sheet music. Yeah. And we got like that just logically makes no sense. And the response of people is deep state. Deep state. Of course it is. Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. So let me say this. A independent, a special prosecutor, an independent counsel has been appointed in the Hunter Biden case, and can we just be clear that if Jared Kushner was being indicted, we wouldn't probably be doing a special podcast today. If Jared Kushner had been indicted last night, or Donald Trump Jr. or Eric Trump had been indicted last night, I doubt that Doug and I would be on the air right now talking about it. I think what we'd say is, we're in Chicago, we're doing this Parliament of World Religions thing. We're going to take the week off. Like, we'll talk about that next week. Because it's like, it's important. It's talk worthy. We would crack jokes and laugh about it, no doubt. But we wouldn't be like stopping what we were doing and coming on the air early, like shifting our schedules around, because Eric Trump, Donald Trump Jr., Jared Kushner are not president of the United States.
It's right.
Hunter Biden is not president of the United States. It's not the same thing.
Now, I get it, but to be clear, what David and others are mentioning is Hunter Biden is he's a co-conspirator with Joe Biden. That's their argument. But again, we can cross that bridge of outlaw presidents when we get there. Yes. We currently have one.
Yes.
Let's spend a little time figuring out Rob, you've probably totaled it up. Are we at 110 indictments?
I don't know
against
the
Donald
number
Trump.
right
80. Somebody needs to count. There are so many charges against Donald Trump now. A real overachiever, that guy.
Oh, I know. This is, they talk in sports about records that will never be broken.
Yeah. Okay.
I feel like this is like a record that'll never be broken.
Well, if we stop now, this will be a record short podcast live stream for us. So I think we should do it under 50 minutes.
Can I just reply to Alex
there
here?
There's the record. Okay.
Alex,
yeah.
who just said, on a lighter side, I like your haircut, Rob. Alex, thank you so much for noticing. There goes producer Dan. 3 weeks ago, I got the worst haircut of my life.
Yeah, I remember.
And it was bad. It was bad. And so I went back to my normal person and said to her, hey, the guy that cut my hair 3 weeks ago, because I needed it cut for a thing that was happening and I was going to have some pictures taken and blah, blah, blah. He did a terrible job. And she fixed it. And just really, really thankful. And my wife looked at me this morning and said, wow, your hair really does look better. So thank you for noticing, Alex. I appreciate that.
And there's the hair update by Robb Ryerse.
And I scheduled my next haircut for 6 weeks from now.
See, now that is newsworthy. The people who put on their calendar a date for a haircut.
Yeah.
I really feel the world is divided into two groups. Those who shut the ringer off when there are podcasts going on, those who don't, and then those who schedule their haircuts ahead of time versus, I think I need to go get my haircut. And
September 25th.
One is not better than the other, but they just really do define two different kinds of people.
September 25th at noon.
Wow, that is a level of self-care that I long for someday. So congratulations, and we'll mark it on our calendar. And my gosh, I hope it's a Monday, so you come in with a fresh.
I believe it is. Yes.
All right. Thanks all for being a part of this. And if you're in Chicago, come over to the McCormick Place and find the Vote Common Good booth at the Parliament of the World Religions. We're going to have a lot of interviews and stuff coming out of this little parliament. I don't know why I say it like with a British accent. Maybe it's because I'm mocking both the British parliamentary system and the name of this event. But the room, Rob, has 10,000 seats in it. This is an enormous event.
I can't wait to be there. I will see you tomorrow.
Alex Yabitz,
David,
D-Animals, 1965, Linda, and hello from Brandon and producer Dan and other Chicago.
Hey, boys.
Other Chicagoites while we're inside of an Airbnb farm here in Chicago where they've taken over a whole building and just built out little Airbnb units with creepy empty cabinets.
Dan getting love in the chat.
We'll see y'all later. Oh, yeah. Doug, you were all about the Russian home. Okay. All right. All right. We'll see you later. Okay, bye.